A sinister insurance scam that saw one man killed and another faking his death to cash in. This is the case of Sibusiso Sithebe. Let's get into it. Sibusiso Sithebe was a 32-year-old man from Soshanguve in Pretoria who worked as a taxi driver. He was a father of 2 young children, a daughter born in 2014 whom he shared with his ex-girlfriend Lerato Mahlangu, and another daughter whom he shared with his new girlfriend of the same name, Lerato Mpefo. Sithebe was described by family members as being family-oriented, dependable, hardworking, and a great father. The mother of his first child, Lerato Mahlangu, was a 31-year-old sales consultant at Old Mutual Investment and Banking Group. After the birth of their first child together, Lerato and Sithebe's relationship quickly spiraled out of control, and the two ended their relationship. According to Sithebe's brother, at the time of the incident, it had been more than 7 years that Sithebe and Lerato Mahlangu had been together. The only thing that remained, according to these family members, was co-parenting of their child, which Lerato sometimes made difficult as she prevented Sithebe from being involved in the child's life. Lerato had in fact moved on and gotten married to another man, a man called Sibusiso Mahlangu, who was 33 years old, whom Lerato had 2 other children with. Therefore, this is a case of 2 Leratos and 2 Sibusisos. However, the involvement of Lerato Mpefo is very minimal, the second girlfriend of Sithebe. Therefore, it's unlikely to cause confusion. However, to avoid confusion in terms of the 2 Sibusisos, Sibusiso Sithebe and Sibusiso Mahlangu, I will only be referring to them using their last names, Sithebe and Mahlangu. The story of the killing of Sithebe began to unfold when Mahlangu was arrested in Hammanskraal outside Pretoria on the 16th of April 2023. The police in the area received a tip-off regarding a man driving a VW Polo, which had been reported stolen in Witbank in Mpumalanga province. The driver of the vehicle, Sibusiso Mahlangu, who was supposedly deceased, was arrested. I'll come back to the stolen car in a bit. The plot thickened when Sibusiso Mahlangu was profiled, and his identity became suspicious to police as the Sibusiso Mahlangu, whom he indicated that he was a man that had been deceased for more than a year and was long buried. Mahlangu quickly made a confession to the police, indicating that he had killed a man and faked his own death to evade arrest. However, it's worth noting that even though he confessed to the killing of another man and faking his death, the details surrounding what happened are different from what was presented by the state in court. So this is what he told police when he was confessing. He indicated that he had been in his house on New Year's drinking beer when a man barged in. And when he asked who the man was, the man started swearing at him, and he perceived this as a threat. They fought with the man, and he had overpowered the man and killed him. He then indicated that they had set the man on fire, and he faked his own death in order to evade arrest. He did not state who the man was or if he knew the identity of the man that he got involved in this fight with. However, he was kept in custody, and his wife was quickly arrested in connection with initially defeating the ends of justice. Upon her arrest, the story began to unfold. Through a detailed investigation by the police, they discovered that Mahlangu and his wife Lerato had lured Sithebe to their home in Soshanguve on New Year's Day in 2022. This was either under the pretense of him going to see his child, whom, if you remember, I just indicated that Lerato made it difficult for Sithebe to be involved in his child's life. However, other media sources have alleged that Sithebe was having an affair with Lerato, despite Sithebe now being in a new relationship and Lerato being married to Mahlangu. The two of them were having an affair, and this is how they lured him into their home in Soshanguve. According to Lerato Mphefo, the other woman who was in a relationship with Sithebe, the two of them, Sithebe and Lerato Mphefo, had celebrated New Year's Day together, but on the same day, they were also celebrating their daughter's birthday. So they had spent the whole day together. And at around 5 p.m., he received a call. And after the call, he informed her that this was a prospective employer, a taxi owner, who had called him and asked him to come and get a taxi to start work. This was the last time that Sithebe was seen alive, as he then took a trip to the Mahlangu residence and he was murdered. When he arrived at the RDP house in Soshanguve, Lerato and Mahlangu ambushed and attacked him. The two then placed him onto a bed and set the bed and house on fire. The testimony of the pathologist who conducted the postmortem on Sithebe indicated that when Sithebe died, he was 1, intoxicated, 2, he also died as a result of the fire. Not that they had attacked and killed him first and then later set him on fire, but there was an indication, likely from tests conducted, likely using his bone fragments, he had died as a result of the fire. Because of the time lapse between the death and when the postmortem was conducted, it's not clear whether there was an injury first and then later he was set on fire, or if they just restrained him and then set him on fire. So that is not very clear. After the house was burnt down, Mahlangu set off, while Lerato left the yard and then pretended to be coming back from KwaMhlanga in Mpumalanga, where she was working. Lerato, in fact, waited for a call from neighbors. So when neighbors saw the house on fire and started putting off the fire, they called Lerato and she pretended to be coming back from KwaMhlanga, but very quickly made her way to the house. When she got there, she went inside the house and she came back wailing, indicating that her husband had been burnt in the fire. A neighbor who was present when the body was supposedly discovered by Lerato testified, though, in court that the bed in which he was found on, as well as the blanket that was covering him, were not burnt, which even at that time raised the suspicion of that particular neighbor. Lerato quickly called Mahlangu's mother, informing her of the news that her son had been burned in a fire and asking her to come. When the mother of Mahlangu got there, she was understandably hysterical, believing that she had just lost her son. And her daughter-in-law, Lerato, was quick to identify the body as that of her husband. The body had been bent from the waist up, and the deceased was wearing boxer shorts as well as a wedding ring belonging to Sibusiso Mahlangu. So these were the items that Lerato showed the mother of her husband, that Sibusiso, this is Sibusiso's wedding ring. These are his boxer shorts. Even though the body was bent beyond recognition, she convinced the mother of her husband that this was her son. The Mahlangu family then started preparing for the funeral, in which Lerato, as the wife of the deceased, or so they thought, took part in all the necessary rituals performed in line with the family and with their Ndebele culture. This included laying on the mattress as the grieving widow as well as, according to family members, she was prevented from going to the burial site and stayed in the family home when the others went to the graveyard, in line with their Ndebele culture. Family members also indicated that during this time, Lerato cried a lot, like one would expect a grieving wife to be crying. She cried a lot and kept telling them how much she loved their son. In addition, the family members also disclosed that Lerato did not pay a cent towards the funeral of her husband. After the funeral, Lerato, together with her very alive husband, Mahlangu, obtained his funeral certificate from the Department of Home Affairs and went on to claim from 3 policies: the life insurance policy worth R500,000, a death benefit policy worth 55,000 rands, as well as a funeral policy worth 25,000 rands. So the 3 policies paid out the total amount of 575,000 rands. The Sithebe family, on the other hand, remember, the funeral was perceived, or the death was perceived to have occurred in the Mahlangu family, and so they did all the rituals and the burial of who they thought was their son. On the other hand, the Sithebe family had reported Sithebe as missing to the police after last seeing him on New Year's Day. With the help of a relative who worked for a cell phone network company, the family was able to trace Sithebe's last call. So they traced his call log, and that the last number he called, or the last number that called him, was not of some taxi driver or some taxi owner asking him to come and pick up a taxi, but rather that of Lerato Mahlangu. When they called Lerato to ask about Sithebe's whereabouts, she stated to them that she did not know, and in fact, she had just lost her husband, so she was not even in the right state of mind. Sithebe's family members stated that they felt so sorry for her to have lost her husband, who died a horrific death in a fire, and at the same time to have the father of her other child missing. They felt very, very sorry for her. If you're intrigued by my storytelling so far, please like this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so yet. So after the 2 were arrested, confession made by Mahlangu during his arrest in April of 2023 became the state's core part of the evidence against the 2. Despite the fact that the confession had some inconsistencies and some fabrications, but he was admitting that a man died in his home, that he had caused the death of that man, and of course it was discovered that this man who had died was Sithebe. He had been set on fire, and that the 2 had claimed from life insurance. So this confession became the biggest part of the evidence. This is because there was no physical evidence linking these 2 to the murders. There were no fingerprints, there was no one that saw the 2 of them killing Sithebe. There was no other form of evidence. There were no cell phone records except the call that Lerato made to Mahlangu. There was no tangible physical evidence except that there was overwhelming circumstantial evidence, including all these different aspects that I've been mentioning so far. However, Mahlangu, now in prison, wanted to recant his confession, stating that the police forced him to make the statement and it was made against his will. This reminds me actually of 2 cases I've covered on the channel. The case of Leslie Shabani, as well as the case of Ontatile Sabati. Check out those cases, those videos if you haven't yet. I don't know, what are your thoughts on all these people confessing and later wanting to recant these confessions. Mahlangu stated that his disappearance was not because he had killed anyone or that he had faked his death. No, but this was due to him discovering that his wife was having an affair with her ex-boyfriend Sithebe and deciding that he needed time for himself to heal and find himself. This is also where the media ran with the story that Sibusiso Sithebe and Lerato Mahlangu were having an affair. This comes because Mahlangu had said they were having an affair and I left to go and find myself. I don't know for sure if these two actually were having an affair, because we also have to consider that Sithebe lied to his girlfriend that he was picking up a taxi when he was in fact going to meet Lerato. Why was that so? What are your thoughts on this? And of course, whether or not the two were having an affair, it has no hold on them killing him and does not in any way justify the acts of these two. Mahlangu stated that during the time that he had gone to find himself, he had moved to Mpumalanga, and within days, he had found himself a girlfriend and moved in with her. And when that relationship ended, he found another girlfriend and also moved in with her. He stated that at the time of his arrest, the car that was reported as stolen was in fact his second girlfriend's car that he had borrowed but did not return. And when he didn't return it, his girlfriend reported the vehicle as stolen. During his cross-examination, Mahlangu was asked why he never called his mother during the 14 months that he had supposedly gone to find himself. Why did he not once call his mother, whom cell phone records and even accounts by his own mother indicated that the two had spoken about once or sometimes even twice a week? And he stated that, he did not want to be found. He wanted to rather find himself. The state also questioned why he never visited his, why he never called or made any means to see anyone, any of his family members. And of course, his response was always that his state of mind was not right. He had lost his uncle and then later discovered his wife was cheating, but he confessed to a crime he did not commit. He did not know who the man was that died in his house. He had no involvement at all with anyone that would have died in his house. It was also revealed during this time, though, that at the time of his confession, he admitted that he was reading his rest in peace messages on Facebook while he was hiding out in Mpumalanga. On the other hand, his wife Lerato also denied involvement in the murder. She said she was not involved in any of it and stated that her only mistake was that because when she was identifying her husband after the house had burnt down, it was 1 a.m. and it was so dark that she made a mistake. She thought that was her husband, but it wasn't. That was her only involvement and her only mistake. One of the state's witnesses against Lerato was a cousin of hers who stated that during Mahlangu's hiding in Mpumalanga, he, the cousin, had asked Lerato for assistance to start a car wash business as he was unemployed. During that time, Lerato sent him 1,000 rands and instructed him to travel to Mpumalanga, where she now lived full-time. While in a taxi traveling to Mpumalanga, the cousin indicated that he received a phone call from Lerato, who spoke in codes but told him that when he arrives in Mpumalanga, he is going to see something that he would not expect to see, but he should not be alarmed. Indeed, when the cousin got to Lerato's place in Mpumalanga, he found a dead man sitting on the sofa and having conversations. In sentencing, or rather in making his findings, the judge questioned how Lerato could have confidently made the determination that the man lying on the bed, bent from the waist up, was her husband, but now state that she had made a mistake because it was too dark. How could she, as a grieving wife, have been so quick to believe that this person lying on their bed was her husband? Also, obviously, finding fault in the idea that this man was wearing her husband's wedding ring, was wearing her husband's boxers. She had a child with this man, but she doesn't know how he ended up in their home and has no idea how he was killed. But her only problem, as she kept stating, was that she made a mistake in identifying him. So the judge found a lot of loopholes in that story. In addition, the judge also questioned how Lerato, who claimed to be in Mpumalanga when the house was burnt down, arrived to the house very, very quickly. However, when she called Sibusiso's mother, who was in a different section of Soshanguve, it actually took her longer than it took Lerato to come from Mpumalanga, according to the accounts of various neighbors who were there at the time. The two of them were both found guilty of murder, of fraud, and of defeating the ends of justice. Mahlangu, of course, is still stating that he is innocent and he would never kill anyone for 575,000 rands. At the time of recording this video in early January of 2025, the two have been found guilty, but the sentences are yet to be handed down. Therefore, it remains to be seen if they are going to be given life in prison or how long exactly those sentences are going to be. This is it for today's case. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.